Hello, I'm Jonathan from Shooting Stuff. Today I'm continuing the journey learning and using and setting up the Apex 10 progressive reloading system from Lyman's Mark 7 division. This Apex 10 is configured in 6.5 Creedmoor, one of the really accurate modern calibers, well suited for PRS style shooting, hunting and general shooting enjoyment. We've previously unboxed the Apex 10 system. I've laid it out on the reloading bench, and today I'm going to just do the basic assembly so that you can see how easy it is to get your Apex 10 up and running when you buy it. I promised last time that I would be looking at the instruction manual. It starts off with some important safety information about the potential hazards of reloading, glasses and such like when you're reloading. Don't drink and load. It's like drinking and driving, we don't do that. There's a list of all the bits that come inside the system. I did not go and correlate every single one to make sure that they're there. We'll pick that up as we go. The unpacking instructions were useful, and I'm going to start off with step 1, installing the feet. If they screw in with difficulty, Mark 7 suggests putting a little bit of grease onto the screw threads. If you don't have any at hand, simply looking on the back of the machine, you'll see there's a compressed spring that comes pre-greased and is a convenient source to apply a little bit onto the screw threads. The first 2 went in nicely without the need of the grease. I'll tell you if these are any different. Not really. Nice and easy to screw them in. These feet allow you to adjust and level your machine onto your reloading bench. The more level your machine is, the better everything will work. Gravity is not going to be pulling any cases out of the system if it was at an extreme slope. Take the time, level the system properly, and make sure at least that there's no play and no wobble wherever you're going to attach it. Before any holes get drilled to secure it, there's a few other steps according to the instruction manual. So that the next step is to determine where on the bench you want this to be, and many people will be tempted to say, oh, that looks good, we're going to drill the holes there, but the handle is an important part of where the machine should be. So my next step is to install the handle. This massive interface locates with a key onto the system, but to give myself a little bit more space, my first step is going to be to get rid of this cable tie or zip tie. An 11/16, about an 18 millimeter spanner or wrench here to secure this. Clip and remove the cable tie, and then the system can be carefully raised as the spring that's nice filled with grease wants to push the entire system up. I can feel it's new. Everything is nice and tight. Position the key into the keyway, and then you've got the slot in the bottom of this interface that allows you to just slide it all the way on. The two small grub screws. I think these will always install better using an appropriate Allen key. And our toolkit does make it a lot easier to find those. Okay, once that's on, I'm going to tighten these a fair bit and consult the manual to see how tightly they want it. Just a reminder that the handle can be configured either on the left or the right. I'm right-handed, so it's going on the right for me. The manual doesn't have any torque specification for these grub screws, so just nice and tight. The handle has a flat machined on it, and that is going to be for the large grub screw to locate, and it allows you some versatility with how much leverage you're going to need. As a starting point, I'm going to put the handle in the center of this slot and see if I need to adjust it later. Tightening this Allen key gets the rotational angle correct. And when you're selecting your position of the machine on the bench, you want to make sure that you have enough clearance between the handle and the edge of the bench so that you can get a full stroke. I normally make sure that my finger can fit comfortably under there so that if anything does move or settle in, that I know I'm going to have enough space. As an engineer, you like everything to be true. Just simply measure the distances before you drill the holes to secure it. These are the mounting bolts. I'm not going to use them right now, but these would be secured through these holes onto the bench to make sure that everything is held nice and securely. While we're making the video, I'm going to secure my system with a C-clamp. So as a result, I'm slightly further forward. I moved the machine to the front so that my C-clamp can apply pressure to the rear of the front system so that it's a lot more stable on my mount. Screwing down onto the bench, obviously you find the optimum position so that you have enough clearance and support on the front of your bench. The two rearmost bolts are the most important. They carry the most load while you're actually forcing the cases into the die. So normally that's not going to be a problem with drilled through systems. Next, we want to install the case feeder. There's two posts. The one with the 3 holes is the upper post. That's where you're going to attach the case feeder, and obviously the other one is the lower post. This big solid bar is to join the two. And this is the system to attach the case feeder onto the frame of the machine. So thankfully the instructions actually guide us very nicely, and we're going to start with installing these two systems onto the frame of the machine. This top bracket goes on just below the tray bracket, and the bottom one is quite obvious. Although the handle can be configured for left or right, the case feeder always mounts onto the left-hand side of the machine. Next up is the lower post. It's got a curve in it, and we want it to curve away from the machine. There's two spacers. The short spacer is going to go at the bottom, and the large spacer goes at the top. And that is because if you look carefully, you can see this bracket is further to the center line than the one on the bottom. So it seems that there's a greater variety of Allen caps on this system than I've been used to, and that we designed our earlier toolkits for on the Dillon machines. Thankfully, I am somewhat prepared. And we have a complete kit of metric and imperial Allen wrenches to help. You want these bolts to be nice and tight, but you don't want them to strip. The colloquial term of tighten it until it strips and then half a turn back is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's screwing into aluminium, so you don't want to overdo it. Next up, we're going to put in the post connector. And here we've got a whole bunch of screws to attach everything. The post connector has two screws on either side, top and bottom. I snug up the screws somewhat as a start, and once everything is fully assembled, I'll tighten everything up. Installing the second post, we want to complete the curve so that the stop part is running vertical. We don't want this running out to the outside, so make sure the S-shape runs to the top, and install the remainder of these screws. Whenever I install these screws, I try as far as possible to make sure I get them going in first, fingers only. If you start off with a wrench, it's very easy to result in cross-threading things, especially when you're screwing into aluminium parts. Start them with a couple of rotations, finger tight, and then you'll be sure not to strip or cross-thread anything. Everything is snugged up. Now we're going to tighten it. This is a very simple interface, so there's no real need to follow the crossover rule, although if you do, it's not wrong. The crossover rule, bottom on one side, top on the opposite side, and then whether you jump that way or down doesn't really matter. But by tightening in across, you keep all of the forces more uniform. Case feeder post is installed, and then we want to mount the case feeder itself as the next step. The first step is to fit the cover, remove these protective coatings, and this cover goes into these slots. The case feeder plate drops in, and I return it until it drops in nicely onto the cross bolt. I'm going to remove these mounting bolts. If I fit the top one first, then it secures it in place and it won't just fall out of the bottom one. Nice and snug, doesn't have to be too tight. When in doubt, go back to the instruction manual. For normal operation, the case feeder plate should rotate clockwise when looking down into the unit. Remember that this unit has got a reverse switch, so just keep that in mind if you do need to use it, to go back to the forward direction again. Next up is the case feeder funnel adjustment. That's this assembly here. There's a door here that you can adjust the size of. The correct adjustment depends on the speed that you're running your system at and the size of the cases. Because we're going for rifle, we're likely to need a bigger opening so that they can fall through. For handgun calibers, start in the middle and adjust accordingly once you start running. This system can also adjust in height, moving it closer or further, and once we get the system set up properly, I'll do that detailed adjustment later. The case feeder also includes a set of springs, large and small, to take the cases from here down into the case feed station. For the large 6.5 Creedmoor, I imagine we'd use the large springs and the large insert that's going to go down the bottom. We're now going to fit the case feed adapter and the drop tube assembly. So this is the system we're going for, and looking at the manual, we've got the 2 bolts already installed in the system. I don't need to remove this one completely because the interface is a hook. Just the rear shoulder bolt needs a complete removal. They don't seem to use the same Allen key, so we'll go to the comprehensive set. Let's see if I can find the right one. And the drop tube assembly slots into place. This bayonet fitting clicks on there, and a grub screw Once that's secured, we have enough flexibility to accommodate any of the height adjustments that are needed. Next up is to install the primer tube stack assembly and the low primer alarm. That's this system with the primer magazine on the inside. 6.5 Creedmoor comes with either large primers or small primers, so make sure that calibers like that you have the correct primer magazine, the primer disc and primer punch installed. Okay, the priming magazine is installed. That's the follower rod, and this is the low warning sensor. Low warning sensor has a grub screw, which allows you to snug it up as tight as you need. Not too tight. It's a simple system, and that's going to go in there, and when you don't use it, it's got a place to hang. After the priming system, we now have the powder measure installation, and then the bullet feeder and the dies. The powder measure comes with its own instructions, and these are actually quite useful. To fit the hopper onto the powder measure, we do it upside down. Firstly, I put the powder baffle inside. The secret here is to push everything straight on. Checking to make sure that we've got it done evenly all round. A visual inspection confirms that we have enough space to install it in the correct station. Initial installation is about halfway. We want the adjustment bar to the center, and I can lock that up with the 1-inch wrench. The Mr. Bullet feeder can be added if you need, powder check system and dies, but this video is aimed at the basic setup and installation. Hopefully you can see how quick and simple it is to get the Apex 10 set up out of the box. After this, as a separate video, we'll have a look at setting up the tool head with the dies in detail and so on, and come back for more and more accessories as this project continues. The Apex 10 from Lyman Mark7 is available from Shooting Stuff at our store in Centurion or online. At Shooting Stuff, we're here giving you more time to shoot.